Welcome to That Could Have Been an Email. I'm Leslie Bailey.
And I'm Ron Shaw.
And we started this podcast to discuss the good, bad, and ugly of project managing, bring humor to our everyday project management and client situations, and a place to commiserate on all those things that our partners, friends who aren't in the industry never understand. Hi, everybody. Welcome to That Could Have Been an Email. I'm Leslie Bailey. As always, with me, the festive Ron Shaw. And today we have a guest for you that is so inspiring, so interesting in the industry, Anna DeShawn. We are going to talk about prioritizing projects, but also taking your passions and turning them into a business in work and in life. So, hey, Ron, how's it going?
It is going great. And I am so happy that we have Anna joining us today. This has been one of the shows I've been looking forward to doing.
I want to say one thing. I'm a little disappointed in your beard because I thought we were growing it out for Christmas to be Santa.
It needed a trim. Okay. It started when it starts getting into food when you're eating, that just becomes uncomfortable. At that point, I hit last weekend and just said, you know what? It's got to go.
That is the sacrifice that you make for the children.
There'll be more. We'll announce at the end of the program. There'll be more for the children. I promise.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, welcome, Anna. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, it's good to be here. It's good
to be day, here. Right?
Oh, it's a great day. It's a great day.
All right. Well, Anna, I wanted to talk to you. We both wanted to talk to you. We know Anna from, of course, we mentioned it a lot from our Expo Notified days. That's how we know most people in this industry. But we wanted to talk to Anna because you are doing so many projects. You're pretty much the busiest person I know in this industry right now. Just to name a few, you're a social entrepreneur. You do digital media. You do creative. You do a podcast. You're the founder of E3 Radio, which we will talk about. And you're also the co-founder of The Cube. So I have to know, how do you have time for all of these things? It seems like there's not enough hours in the day for you to be part of all of this, but you're very front and center of everything you start.
I wake up early.
Okay. Number one tip.
I wake up early. I go to bed late. I take naps. And I enjoy my therapy sessions because therapy saves lives. Okay. And I've found other things that also bring me joy outside of my work, which often entail vegging out on my couch in the basement with my puppy Coco and my wife and watching terrible television. So, they say if you find what you love to do, you don't work a day. That's not true. I work every day. But it feels different when it's for yourself. It feels different when you feel like you're doing what you're called to do. It just feels different when you're going out and eating what you catch. I hate the other saying. So but you get the idea that there's just a different, it's just a different type of work. And so it brings me so much joy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like that because you do hear people say, well, if you like it, it's not work. Well, technically it's not exactly true because you're still putting in all these hours and effort. And let's be real, most of us are still getting paid for things we like to do. So technically it is still work. So I like that you say that. So let's talk about how you started, where you're at now. So how did you started out, and I'm speaking from my experience with you, so you can tell me what you did before that. You started out doing webinars and broadcasts in Expo, now Notified. So how did you start into this career and how did you get to where you are now with all these projects that are now making a huge impact on a lot of lives?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It started though, right? I went to undergrad, got my degree in radio, television production, big ups to Drake University. Then I went out to Ithaca College immediately after that and got my master's in organizational communication, big ups to IC. And it was there where I realized that the internet was really helping to bridge the gap with broadcasting, right? Mm-hmm. And this is 2005, 2006. I think I graduated from there in 2007. So it was during that time, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool what we can do with the internet and how we're transmitting audio and video over the internet. And I came back home to Chicago and ended up with my first job was at the University of Illinois at Chicago in the School of Public Health in a nonprofit called the Center for the Advancement of Distance Education. It was called CADE. Let's talk about the bureaucracy. Okay, it's an educational institution inside of a nonprofit. Okay, and we had government contracts. So I was actually managing one of their bigger contracts. We were doing webinars for the Maternal Child and Health Bureau. Mm-hmm. This is video conferencing and Real Player. Okay. Literally real player. So y'all know what year this was. And we were doing captioning and transcripts. It was something. ISDN lines. It was a whole nother world. And so that's where I started actually out of school. It was a wonderful opportunity for me and I thought we were busy until I showed up at an expo. But during that time, I was managing their webinars and our video production. So we would go on site, 3-4 cameras. We weren't live streaming at that time, but we would take them back to the office, digitize them, and put them online for people to watch later. And so the economy tanked. We all got laid off. I was one of the last, I think I was number 8 to leave, but it was a company of 50-something people when I first entered. It was quite the first job experience. And so then when I applied to an expo, Jen Gibson was the person that interviewed me. I actually showed up with experience.
Yeah, you were one of the only ones, because I didn't show up with
exactly.
experience there.
None of us had experience. Everybody thought we were playing on computers, right? So that's where it started. Then I came to an expo and I stuck around for a really long time. And we were in that world. So that's really where it started. I always wanted to be a sports broadcaster. I wanted, I love Robin Roberts. Anybody that knows her, hey, holler. I wanted to be her. But I understood when I got to undergrad to do that and pursue that work, I quickly realized there weren't people like me that look like me on television. There are not masculine centered women on television. You are expected to look a certain type of way. Yeah. And that is just not how I look at all. And I had an opportunity to get an internship at a radio station in Des Moines, Iowa, to turn on Tom Joyner in the morning. And I was doing the traffic and I was doing the weather, and people would call and say, "Oh, I love your voice. I'm so glad you're at the station." Da, da, da. I was like, this is dope. I can still talk to thousands of people, and I can look like a bum, and no one cares that I don't have on makeup. No one cares that I have on a tie or a suit jacket. Like I can still talk to people and make a real impact through radio. And that's really where I really fell in love with the medium.
That's quite a story. And I love the fact that you felt that you can make an impact, even though it wasn't exactly what you wanted. And because I think we've all experienced that somewhere in our careers. It wasn't exactly what we visualized, but you found a way around that and you love it. So talking about radio, let's switch gears a little. I want to talk about one of your passion projects, E3 Radio. So kind of tell us a little bit about how you decided to found that and how you kind of made the leap, because like you said, you were at Notified for a long time and you really moved up there. So how did you make the leap to decide to kind of go out on your own, start to found this project and possibly move away from that full-time job that you had?
100%. So this idea also came to me in undergrad. I was running for student activities board president. And I got to a runoff. I mean, I killed that election. Considering I wasn't in a sorority, I did pretty good at that PWI for that election. But I ran on 3 E's. I ran on education, enlightenment, and empowerment of the student body. And when I was there, I was learning about all these amazing Black women that I had never learned about before, the Ella Bakers of the world, the Fannie Lou Hammers of the world. And I was just really bewildered as to why I had never heard of these women before. And so actually E3 started off as a college radio network. So I had the idea I was going to create these commercials and syndicate them to all these college radio stations. And I was going to make money from ads and it was going to be great. Then I quickly realized college radio was not going to work. Advisors are just there to be advisors. It's not like there's a system in place. And there's such a high turnover because the whole idea is that you leave. That didn't work out, but I couldn't release the idea of E3 at all and what the impact we could potentially have, as I could see a vision for it. And I knew there was a need because no one was telling those stories. And so like every project in undergrad, every project in my master's program was always about E3. And I just dropped one of the E's for entertainment. I was like, we can do this. And in the very beginning, it was not a queer focused station. As a matter of fact, if anybody was to Google E3, you might find an old logo that was just purple and white. It was not until I was okay fully with it being queer that we put the rainbow on the inside. And that was a process for me. And I had people be like, Anna, you just need to be queer. I was like, no, it don't. But it was where it was needed. And I started interviewing influencers here in Chicago, LGBTQ folks of color, who just said, like, no one's ever interviewed me before. No one's ever asked me to tell my story before. And that just blew my mind because they were making such an impact on us here. And the fact that nobody was telling their stories. And one thing we know as people who live at the intersections is that if you don't tell your story, no one will. And you will be left out of history. And we can't be erased. Our stories can't be erased. And there's nobody better to tell those stories than us. So E3 Radio was founded in 2009. I was working at an expo. It was a passion project that entire time. We play queer music, we report on queer news, and it's what I love. And we've recently pivoted into podcasting. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But it's absolutely what I love. I can't let it go. No one's investing in radio. I don't care. I'm just, I just think there's just such a need to amplify the voices of queer, trans people of color.
Definitely. And so my next question for you, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to ask this, and I've talked to a few people that I've networked with who do still have a full-time job and want to try and do these things on the side. Go back in your time machine. How did you make the time to actually put your efforts toward this and make sure those stories were told, while also, we all know, putting in so many hours at your full-time job?
You're so funny, Leslie. People would ask me, they'd be like, Anna, don't you do the station full-time? No, I don't do it full-time. What are you talking? I have a career. Sometimes people have me like, I got a job. No, we did not have jobs. We had careers that were very demanding, with demanding clients. I would just chuckle to myself and say, what if I was doing it full time? What would you think then? This is nights and weekends of me making time for it. So I think it's actually really important, if you have a passion for something, even throughout your corporate life, to make time for something you really care about, because oftentimes the corporate work is not filling you up. Right. And it can also be very depleting and exhausting. So if you have something you're passionate about, I challenge you to make time for it, because we make time for the things we care about. And because you need to get filled back up. And that's what the station did for me. It kept me connected to my community. It helped me to tell stories. It gave me opportunity to interview really amazing people. And some of those interviews I value today so much, because so many of those people aren't here anymore to tell their stories. And you just have an opportunity to be part of their story. And that's how I did it. It was nights, weekends when I had time, but I just wouldn't have done it any other way.
And I think a lot of people figured that out during COVID, that their careers weren't filling them up, or it wasn't feeling a need or want that they needed. So I like that, because I think so many people are now doing side projects they actually want to be doing, where at first they were probably like, no, I can't take focus away from my career. But like you're saying, it doesn't all have to be about just getting things done. It should be about things that you actually want to do that are going to impact you and other people. Clients, yes, of course, we want to impact them, right, in a successful way. But at the end of the day, we also want to feel like we did something that made us feel good as well. So I really like that. And I like now that people are starting to branch out and be honest about where their time is being spent and how they want to spend it.
Yeah. I heard somebody tell me this. They were like, when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to say, dang, I really worked hard for that company. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I really put everything in my career. I feel really proud. That is not what you're going to say. So I think about that often, like in those moments, like our time here is not infinite. So when I'm in that moment, what am I going to be saying to myself? I want to be able to say, like, I'm really proud of the work I did. I want to be able to say, I have no regrets about how I lived my life. I spent the time with my family that I was supposed to spend. I did what I wanted to do. I lived how I wanted to live. Like, if you can't answer or say those things right now, like, fix it. Like, if COVID has told us nothing, it's like, today isn't promised. So I just want you to fix that for yourself.
Yeah. And that's a good point too, because Ron and I have talked a lot about in previous episodes, setting boundaries, and just, I'm not, at the end of the day, I'm not be like, oh, I really wish I would have been talking to that client longer. No offense, clients. I'm not going to say that. That's not something that I'm looking to fill my day with, or take away from other things that I'm doing. So let's talk a little bit about, so we talked about E3 Radio. Let's go into the podcast. So tell us a little bit about the podcast that you do as well, because those are telling stories that really are affecting others in a positive way as well.
100%. I fought the podcasting space for a very long time. People be like, "Oh, you got a podcast?" No, I have a radio show. Thank you very much. I love radio so much. I have a radio show. Thank you. But we always had an RSS feed because we were online. So of course we always had a podcast, but it was never something that I curated. It was like whatever we did live turned into a podcast, which can work. But it became very clear to me as I watched the market and watched what was happening, that podcasting really wasn't going anywhere, that this was a thing that was really catching on. And it was a way to connect with people on demand. And as consumers began to consume media on demand more and more, and it started with television, it was only going to translate into radio, in a very short period of time. And that's exactly what happened. People, you can't DVR radio, right? You can't. You
unless you're going to record on a tape. Still, I don't think you can do that.
Leslie, you just gonna age yourself. You just gonna talk about
confused. You confused half the audience with that one. What's
they
a
don't
tape?
even know what you're talking about. Okay, but exactly my point. If you on radio, if you miss it, you miss it. So it just was very clear that we needed to pivot some of our work into podcasting, and so that's what we did. It was in a conversation with my two co-founders, my two best friends, just like, how do we remain relevant in this space? How do we can continue to grow listenership? What should we be doing next? And podcasting came up, and we just continued to talk about how difficult it was to find podcasts that were hosted by Black folks and by queer folks and by brown people. Like, where are they? And then we just started meeting about it. Like, how can we be a part of the solution for this? I was in the shower trying to find a name, and that's where the cube came from. So, right, mathematically, E to the third power is to cube something. And I was like, oh, we could put a Q on it and make it queer. And so that's where the name comes from. And the work that we're doing there is about curating the very best Black and brown podcasts into one spot and creating a space of discoverability. And I knew we also wanted to create our own content because we aren't looking to own anybody else's stuff. So we needed our own intellectual property in order to be really successful in this space. And so we started creating our own Cube Originals, which have turned into its own set of work, which is amazing. And then, of course, E3 Radio is still very much so a thing. The radio station is on all the time. And that's where the Queer News Podcast lives, is with E3 Radio. And that's been our blueprint, or our black print, depending on how I want to look at it, for how we can be successful in this game. And proving that there is an audience for the work that we're creating. So I'm excited about our Cube Original slate for 2023, where we tell the stories of race and sexuality and doing it at a very high level.
That is amazing. The range of how long that's been going on is amazing as well. So I want you to give everybody some advice, because obviously you know what you're talking about and you know what you're doing. How I've heard a few people actually talk about lately how some of their positions don't exactly line up with their values, or some opportunities that they took as a contractor aren't exactly in line with what they would do. So what advice would you give us as to, if you're going out independently, how to kind of really find those opportunities that line up with their values, or maybe what questions to look for to ask when you're trying to find that right opportunity?
I think you got to be very clear about what you will and will not do, who you will and will not work with. We still are figuring that out ourselves in this world, because I have to go out here and sell. It's the passion work, but there's also the money work, right? Like, there's people who are depending on me to go out here and make money so that we can keep this ecosystem going. So I think you have to be just very, very clear on your own boundaries in this space, and also clear on your own value. Like, we take opportunities because we don't think anything else is coming, and we take opportunities because there's nothing else out here. There is plenty out here. The right opportunity is for you, but that's like a mind shift. Like, you have to believe that you are worthy of that opportunity in that moment. I say, when you go out here, I think you should be clear also, if you're going out here independently to be a contractor, you should have a list of companies that you're looking at. This should not be like, oh, I'm stepping out on faith. Okay, yes, we step out on faith, but we do it with intention. And we do it with a plan. And I'm a Virgo, so like, have thousands of spreadsheets. Okay. and and organize it. But B, you have to be intentional, like so intentional. P, nobody's making no big leap out here and just wishing on a prayer or on the moon. That is not going to get you anywhere. You need to be very intentional and have a list of the companies that you think you want to work with. Go on your LinkedIn, take the time. It takes a lot of time, but that's what you need. Take the time, see who's connected to who. Nobody is taking cold calls. Okay.
Yeah.
You need a warm introduction. First connection, second connection, look at who you want to meet, see who knows who, see if they'll give you a warm introduction. You need to make a list and be prepared and be intentional and give yourself positive affirmations throughout the entire process, because you're going to hear a lot of no's. I cannot tell you how many no's I get. Okay. It's not the fun stuff I share on social. I try my best to share all of the things, the good and the bad and the ugly, because it's all part of the journey. I never wanted to look like, oh, we're just winning, because we are not. There's a lot of no's. So you really do have to pump yourself up for that and prepare yourself for that. But you got to be intentional. Got to be intentional.
And that's such a good plan, because I mean, I've taken a couple of people that have reached out to me just to connect, and I'm super naive and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a project. Yes. And then I get on there and it's not. They just actually wanted to see what I'm about and what I do. And while it's a little disappointing, to be honest, because you're like, oh, don't have something for me to do. Don't have any money for me to make. So I think your advice of being intentional is better, because no one led with, oh, I just want to connect. I don't actually have any work for you to do, which selfishly, that's what I'm looking for. I'll connect with people all day long, but I need some kind of bottom line as to why we're doing this. If you just want to be besties, maybe we do that at a different time when I need some work. But I love the being intentional and you being honest about how much time it takes, because I think, it happens a lot where we hear people that lose their full-time position and then decide they're going to be a consultant. Okay, great. But that's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, I'll use myself as an example. I have a vast range of knowledge in webinars, education, all that stuff. That does not mean that I am the right person for you or that the questions you have, I can answer. So I'm kind of not being as intentional as I should when I'm looking at some companies and what they're looking for, because it doesn't always result in me being the right person for them. So I like you. And it's like, we all say, it's kind of like looking for a job. Do you have to do it all day, every day? Yeah, sometimes you do. It's terrible. But that's what you have to do. It's not just going to come to you. So I think your advice of being intentional and just having some kind of organization of what your next step is going to really help you out.
Yeah, Sandlot killed our generation. Build it, they will come. What? What is that? That is such a lie. You build it and they will wait till you land on their social feed. Like they will wait until someone tells them about you. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Something else I'll also share is that I think it's also important to be of service. So when you're on those calls, you figure out how you can be of service to that organization. Yeah. Like they might not come in there being very clear, but you're clear. You're trying to find a project to make some money. And if you can't do that, let me see how I can be of service, because you want to stay in relationship. And when you're working on it by yourself, you're focused, very, very focused. And so you may lose that connection because they aren't in your circle, but you just never know when they may think of you because of what you did for them. Yeah. So that was some of the best advice I got early on, was to just always ask before you end the call, how can I be of service to you? Because that doing something for free for somebody may lead to like one of the biggest paid opportunities you could ever have, because people want to work with people they like, and they don't know, if they don't know you to like you, that is just not how it works, So I always keep that in mind too.
So agree with that. And that's, I think that came up on a couple episodes ago. We were talking about that. And I had mentioned that, that's one of those things. It's even when you make that connection, it's what can I do for you? Ask that question, because that's your foot in the door, because you do those things for free sometimes, and it might build a relationship, and that relationship may lead to another relationship that then may further down to some type of work or opportunity for you. So it's always just being in that line of service and saying, hey, well, how can I help you? And I think, Anna, that is just a fabulous point that more people need to be cognizant of.
Yeah, it is, because I actually got similar advice when I decided to go out on my own. Is I was making a proposal for a company that sought me out. And I thought since they sought me out, this was a done deal. I was going to charge them for everything. So I had sent it to a colleague of mine to look at, and she was like, you need to do that webinar in kind. And I was like, no. And she's like, you do. She's like, you to get your foot in the door, you cannot charge them for that. So yeah, I did it. And it was actually a really good experience with them. It was just, she was like, you got to give a little, you can't go out the gate just charging these people who don't know you. And I was like, you're right. Because while I know my value, they don't know that. I could give you information that you already know or that your audience already has, and you just paid me for it. So it wasn't a value to you. So I think you both are right in think of yourself as a service. What could you actually do for them?
I don't know if I would have went that far though, Leslie.
Oh, well, I did.
Leslie, did it turn into something good?
It did. Yes.
Okay, good. I would have been like, let me give you a couple of free pre-production. Oh, is something?
It's turned into a very nice situation. So I was lucky in that. I'm not sure everybody else would be able to tell that story.
I'm telling you, it wouldn't have been quite like that. But I'm glad it worked out. That's good.
Yeah. And if not, lesson learned, right? Don't really offer all that up for free.
But I will also say this, even if it had not turned into something bigger, it would have been a case study. It would have been an example of your work, right? If they liked you enough, they would have written a testimonial. Social proof is so incredibly important. You cannot get past social proof. I have a marketing team that I've been working with for like the last 3 years. And they create the posts, I edit, I approve, they schedule. They make sure my social proof is out there if I never post a thing myself. It's incredibly important to be top of mind to people in this space. And you have to find your channel of where you reach those people.
Yeah.
I think for this podcast, it's probably LinkedIn. Okay. That's probably needs to be your jam. If you are not jamming on LinkedIn, I don't know how successful you really trying to be out in the world. And LinkedIn is such an amazing platform. I feel like they stayed true to exactly who they were. Yeah. And they have not lost market share at all. They have gained market share because of that. And so I'm just saying, if your LinkedIn game ain't tight, fix that too. Okay.
Tip number 2. LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And I don't want to lose sight of it because I want to go back to it because you're coming up on a big anniversary for another project, yet another one that you work on called the Purple Tie Affair. So can you tell everybody a little bit about how that started, what it is, and the anniversary that you're coming up on?
Love talking about the Purple Tie. It's our annual gala. I started it on my 30th birthday. To give back to my favorite nonprofits. I didn't want to do a party where my face was all over the flyer and like, let's turn up. I'm 30, that was very appealing almost. But I said, well, this might be a good chance for me to give back. And that's where it started. The first one was like all my family. And everything that could go wrong did go wrong. This roof was leaking. The elevator went out. That's just an epic story of the first Purple Tie when I turned 30. But we've been doing it. Yeah, to your point, next year is going to be a milestone for 10 years for the Purple Tie. It's incredible. We've donated over 10 grand to various organizations in the Chicagoland area. And it's just a wonderful time to also uplift other queer artists, drag performers, musicians, giving them a platform to be heard and booked by other people. Our silent auction is always good. It keeps growing bigger and bigger. We've started doing it virtually pre-COVID. And it's just awesome because we have following all over the country. So that's a way that everyone can support the effort is by diving into the auction. And we have good food and music. It's just good community. It's a good time. Everybody comes looking fly. And this year, it was really great. I changed it up for our VIP. Instead of having an artist, we did a podcast listening party. And it was so great. I'm taking it around the country in 2023. We're going on a Cube tour. We're going to take our silent headphones with us. and create these intimate podcast listening parties where we take our content to the people. So it's just been a wonderful place to be community and to give back to things I care about.
Anna's going global.
Hey,
you heard it here first.
Hey.
I think that's so great. Like, Anna, like I've always been inspired just watching as you've gone through this process, having had the opportunity to work with you for a number of years and kind of watch this. It's something that I think people out there should really like look at, because what you did, you started where you had your passion with the radio, but you've continued to evolve it. You didn't give up on it. And when, you realized there was, maybe you needed to change a little bit here or there or whatever, you did that and you stayed with it. And that's, when it's a passion project, you do that. You make those adjustments because it's something you believe in and it grows with you. If something changes, great. You adjust and you figure out how to make it. And I think, Anna, you've just done a fabulous job with any of the things that you get involved with. And the way you do that, you grow, and it's just, there's so much excitement that comes off it when you're talking about these things. It's incredible.
It's been amazing. It's been amazing. And let's talk about the power of the pivot. Okay. I just don't know. We have a lot of ideas, and as creatives and people who are creative, you always have another idea. There will never be a shortage of ideas. Okay. But if you're passionate about something, don't be so tight with it, or don't pigeonhole yourself to that one thing that you think is going to be. If you are doing something well, you will constantly be pivoting. Your tagline will constantly change. And if it's not, you need to be concerned. All good things continue to evolve. All good things continue to evolve. I mean, if we can look back on our time at an expo and then notify, my word, the number of logos, the number of taglines, the number of things we were supposed to be doing, thinking about, but it's because, leadership at its best was always thinking about how are we going to continue to remain relevant. And I think about Drew all the time. Like, I feel like so much of his passion came through in those pivots, because he's out here in the world talking to people and just like, that's not what they want. So we need to figure out how we're going to give people what they want, and your initial idea is usually the start of it. I was speaking at a conference in October, and someone was like, what do you do with these ideas you have? And I tell people all the time, I sit on them. I sit on an idea for a long time, because what it starts off at, and you share it with a couple of people and they be like, what about that? And then what if you did like this? And then, but no, Anna, that's good, but this is better. And by the time I'm done really thinking about it and ready to launch it, it's 10 times better than what my initial idea was. So I sit on something for a real long time when it comes to ideas, and I'm never afraid to pivot. It's all a great experiment. Who's that quote? Is it Ben Franklin's quote? Like, everything we see around us started in somebody's imagination.
I'm going to be the first to admit, I don't know. I'm not sure who that was.
I think it was Ben Franklin, but yeah, our imaginations are powerful.
I'm sure we'll get a fact checker out there.
I love it.
Tell us whether or not that was true.
One of the other things I heard you say, Anna, is taking that when you have those ideas, when you're sitting on it, though, but you also mentioned you take it to a group of friends or people that you're close to and talk about it. I think that's great, because that really does help spawn ideas. It gives you the things you're not thinking on. But to your point, it's like, you can't be so locked into something of like, it has to be this way and only this way. So then with that rigidity, you kind of stop yourself from really seeing the full potential of an idea or something that you want to do.
100%. Yeah. The possibilities are so endless, and you will stop all your blessings thinking it's supposed to be this way because this is what my first idea was. You kidding? It just happened to me the other day. I busted out this idea, and then the person came back and was like, oh, but you could do da 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 da. And I was like, what? You just blew. That's not what I had in mind at all. But keeping it all also in perspective, because sometimes people want to take you from A all the way to double Z, and you're like, wait, I'm just trying to get to D. Like, and so you think about like, you're going to get different phases of you, and you can sort of see the growth, and then you can begin visioning what that looks like. And then you can begin focusing and executing on that until you get to double Z. If you ever get there, who knows? By that time, you might be at Y. Who knows? Knows.
All right. Well, we have reached the end of our time, and it has been amazing to have you on. Hopefully we can get you back on again and talk some more as you go through, especially interested as you start your tour. I'd be interested, if you get out to the East Coast, definitely let me know. I might make my way down to say hello.
I'm definitely going east. I'm definitely going east. Absolutely. We're going to do we'll definitely be in DC. We're definitely going to be in New York City. And who knows where else I might end up, maybe Philly.
All right.
Maryland.
Those are in my range.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I definitely will be in Maryland for sure. We'll see where else.
Excellent. Leslie, anything else before we wrap up today?
No, just thank you so much, Anna. It's always so great to talk to you, and definitely tell everybody where they can find you on LinkedIn. We already know that. But where else can they find you? Because you do so many things and you honestly have so many posts that people would find inspiring every day. So where else are you?
Yeah. So Anna DeShawn across all the socials, just whatever one you like the most, go there. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all those good things. I'll also say if you're into podcasting, and clearly you are, if you're listening to this one, you should definitely go and follow the Cube, TheQube, across social media as we launch in 2023. And I'm really excited about that.
All right.
Excellent. One final update before we wrap up today. We have been doing our charity for the holiday months, and we are up to $415.
Yay!
So if you want to help get that up a little bit higher for us, we are going through the end of the year, and all you have to do is listen to the episode, even for a couple of seconds, and it adds that number up. So the more views and downloads the episodes have, the more I will go in and be able to donate to the Children's Fund at the end of the year. So
maybe try to get up to 500. Don't kill me for
I'm
saying
hoping
that.
I would love to see it. I think that would be awesome if I can do that. But again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Anna, thank you. Leslie, always a pleasure. Everybody, have a great day.
Bye, everybody.